Good morning. I want to take the time to welcome all of you here today, and on behalf of the Catholic District School Board of Eastern Ontario, thank the Enterprise Business Centre for their collaboration and work in organizing this event. I would also like to thank St. Lawrence College for hosting and for inviting our many secondary school students attending here today. I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker this morning. Marc Lafleur is a graduate of Holy Trinity Catholic High School here in Cornwall, and we are thrilled to have you here this morning, Marc, to speak to us about your experience as a young entrepreneur and business owner. I had the opportunity to get an advanced copy of the book, True Founder, and as a teacher, you'll see I've got for all the teachers here today, I've got all my little sticky notes there. And so I had the opportunity to get the advanced copy, and what you're about to hear from Marc today is that an entrepreneurial mindset is exciting and the possibilities are endless. As a teenager, Marc was unsure of career paths, and he felt a little lost, unsure of where he would end up, and this could be similar to many of you here today. But through hard work, failures, successes, time and dedication, and motivation, he founded True Local, an online marketplace for consumers to connect with local farmers and producers, and he pitched ideas on Dragon's Den, and this culminated in a $16.8 million company. A problem solver and a person who was willing to be creative and take chances, Marc is a highly successful entrepreneur, and while reading his book, there were a number of things that resonated with me. Many of you may be sitting here today unsure of what you're wanting to do or unsure of how you get started in a career, in business, or just in life in general. And what I think you'll learn from Marc here today is that you need to find your passion. Find what motivates you and then explore every possibility to achieve success. I could sense your passion in this book here, Marc, and we're excited to have you here to speak to us. So Marc, on behalf of all of us here today, welcome.
I just want to thank all of you for coming and thank Cornwall for allowing me to share my story. So, my name is Marc Lafleur. Anybody here from back in the day that knew me probably knows me as Dark Marc. Nice little nickname I got to keep from high school. I co-founded and was the former CEO of a company called True Local. True Local was a website where you could go online, and what we did is we partnered with various suppliers, farmers, producers, and let people order whatever meat products they wanted. So at our height, we had over 150 different products in Ontario alone. And people could go online and mix and match whatever products they wanted. So the thing about that is we didn't reinvent the wheel. True Local is a through and through D2C e-commerce company. So D2C being direct to consumer. We would pretty much create a website and we would let people purchase products, and then we would ship it directly to the customer's home. That's where D2C comes from. And on top of that, it was something where we saw that a lot of companies were already doing similar things. There was a lot of companies who had found a lot of success with the D2C model. There was a lot of companies who had found a lot of success in the e-commerce model. And there was definitely a lot of companies that were doing an amazing job of selling food online. So we decided to just take these best practices from a lot of these companies that were finding success and put them into a niche market. So what a niche market is it's essentially just instead of going and trying to get every single person who wants to order food online, we focus specifically on meat. And during that time, we racked up a series of wins. We were on Dragon's Den, where we got 4 offers and ended up getting a deal with Michelle Romanow. We built the company to 60 employees across the country with offices in Ontario, Alberta, BC. We had an office in Chicago for a little while. We opened up in Quebec. And we were fortunate to be on the cover of the Globe and Mail. So one of Canada's most prominent business magazines. And it was for being Canada's 14th top growing company out of 400. So what they do is they take 400 of Canada's fastest growing companies, rank them, and we got 14th place. And then I guess finally we ended up selling the company after 5 years for $16.7 million in 2020. And it's crazy because, once again, like, trying to talk about how my life has kind of just become a story, but I had made a post when I quit my job to start True Local. And it was January 4th, 2015, and exactly 5 years later is when we announced the sale of the company. So all of this has been so surreal, and it's pretty much led me to why I get to talk to you guys here today, because really at the end of the day, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was definitely not qualified to start a business. And once again, anybody who knows me here from back in the day, I would say it would be one of the farthest stretches to assume that I'd be here sharing my story with you guys. So I think that's probably my claim to fame. Of course, I've now authored a book talking about my experiences, and I really wanted it to be something that was not just sharing my story. I wanted to give actual, tangible tips and advice on how to start a company. And in my personal life, now I'm driving race cars. So that's kind of my passion right now. And whether it have been growing up without a car, or whether it be just because, like, who doesn't like sports cars, it's something that I'm deeply, deeply passionate about now. So that's who I am. And before I dive in, I want to quickly just mention two more things. So why do I enjoy talking? Why do I want to talk to you guys here today? Number one is because, for whatever reason, I've been very, very, very fortunate. And I'm fortunate because there are so many people who, along my journey, helped me get to where I am today. It was never, ever something that I could have done alone, or in my opinion, anybody could have done alone. And it's not like people owed me anything. Like, it's not like people owed me the help. I didn't do anything to earn it, but from the goodness of their heart, people reached out. And whether that be my old Holy Trinity teachers who saw me kind of turning my life around in grade 11, because it really was touch and go between grade 9, 10, and then 11, or whether it have been our first investors who took a chance on me when I had no business experience whatsoever, barely made it through university, got a degree in health, which has nothing to do with business, or whether it just be the other founders and entrepreneurs who, for whatever reason, would accept a phone call, or they would be willing to hop on any sort of advice-giving lunch date or Zoom call or whatever it might be. There were so many people who helped me get to where I'm at today. And after spending time thinking about the most value that I got from that, what I realized is that it was the information. Information's king. If you're looking to go into business, if you can talk to people who have been there and done that, that can save you thousands of dollars, and it could save years off your journey. So when I started realizing how valuable the information was, I knew that early on I wanted to go ahead and share that if I ever made it to a point of success. So that's one of the reasons I like to talk. I want to share my information and my knowledge with you guys, because if anybody here is looking to start a business, and if anything in my story resonates with you or can help save you from some of the traps that might happen going down that road, then I want to make sure to do that for you. And number two is, I think the single biggest thing and the single most important factor in getting high school kids or university students or younger into business is exposure. When I was in school, I didn't even know that business was an option. I had no idea whatsoever. It wasn't until I got to university and I heard that Snapchat got offered $3 billion for their company that I was like, oh, okay, I think this is probably something I want to get into. And when I think about it, it was nobody's fault. It was just, there was nobody around that was really pushing the bar in business. And maybe there were, but I didn't know who they were, and I didn't have any access to them. So for me, I love doing these talks because I think it's really important to show you that you don't have to have any skills. You don't have to be super smart. Like, you don't have to have this stuff figured out. You don't have to come from a wealthy family to go ahead and absolutely crush it in business. If anything, if you're going through a hard time right now and things are tough, you're better suited to go start a company because you're used to being told no. You're used to being in a situation where you can't get what you want. And trust me, if you go into business, that's going to be the number one skill, is pushing past all the no's. So those are the reasons I enjoy doing these types of talks. So I guess kicking it off, This talk is something that I've actually only ever done in Cornwall. I wrote about it, 3 chapters in my book are actually about this exact topic, but I've never actually spoken about it until I came back home. And I think the reason for that is because obviously lots of different audiences, lots of different types of people to talk to, but this is the one thing that I wish I was hearing when I was around your guys' age. And I wanted to do something special for my hometown. I wanted to do something special and actually leave something behind that might inspire or motivate. And I started thinking, like, what's the one thing that I would want to leave someone with if they were in my position? And it actually ended up being the thing that I get asked almost the most. And that question is, how do you stay motivated? And you might be sitting there like, what does that have to do with business? Like, why don't we talk about how to get customers, or how to work on a financial plan, or how do you beat your competitors, or how do you raise money? Honestly, that stuff's easy. There's 1,000,001 different guides online, or coaches, or LinkedIn influencers, or whatever, talking about this type of stuff. But it's funny because any single time I talk to a founder, what they want to know is, how do I stay motivated? And the reason for that is because business is long. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that business is long and it's hard. Every single day, you're getting rocks thrown at your head. Guaranteed. Every single day. When people say that it doesn't get easier, it's true. It's never going to get easier until you get to where you're going, or until you get to do what you set out to do. And not only is it hard, because it's so hard, you have to be the best version of yourself the whole way through. So let's say you are the type of person who's like, no problem, I want to take on the challenge. All right? No problem. I like hard things. The problem is that it's easy to go do a game, or a sports game, or go play football, or whatever it might be, and be on the ball, like be at your best for a couple hours. But if you want to do business, you better be thinking multiple years. You better be thinking like 5 years minimum. And because of all the pressures coming down around you, trying to stop you from finding success, you need to be the best version of yourself for 5 years. So how do you do that? How do you stay motivated for 5 years on something? And really, at the end of the day, what ends up happening to a lot of founders is they don't get beat by external factors. It's not like a new competitor came up and raised a bunch of money. It's not like their product sucked. It's not like they ran out of money. These are all reasons why some companies fail. But really, business is a war of attrition. So what I mean is, a lot of people just end up giving up. Either they run into a challenge that they couldn't push through, or just they can't deal with the relentless onslaught of problems each and every single day. So finding a way to stay motivated when you're in year 3, knowing you've got another 3 years to go, when you're absolutely at the bottom, when you're in a hole, that's a valuable skill. So how to stay motivated, to me, is one of the most important things you can understand if you're thinking about starting a company, or if you're already in it. So I don't think I have to spend too much time talking about why it's good to be motivated, because I'm assuming that most of you have experienced motivation before. All right? Let's take a quick minute just to make sure we're all on the same page, because people might describe motivation differently and might feel about it a little bit differently. But in my opinion, motivation, we all know what it's like to be motivated. We all know what it's like to wake up in the morning ready to take on the world. When you wake up in the morning and you're super motivated to do something, versus when you wake up in the morning dragging your knuckles trying to get out of bed, and every single thing, brushing your teeth, putting on a good shirt, heading into school, writing down notes. It's like such a drag. We know the difference. I would make an argument that when you're motivated, you are at least 5 times more productive than when you're not. I don't know about you, but for me, when I wake up in the morning and I'm motivated to do the things that I want to do, I can get done more in 1 hour than I can during an entire day when I'm not motivated. So if we understand that motivation makes you more productive, and we understand that to be successful in business, because it takes so long, you have to be the best version of yourself, being as productive as possible for as long as possible is going to give you a huge advantage in terms of finding success. And if we know that being motivated makes you more productive, then isn't a little bit of a hack, like a little bit of a way to give you that leg up on your competition and set yourself up for success? Wouldn't there be a world where learning to master your motivation levels and be in control of it instead of letting it control you? Wouldn't that be a really, really good starting point to starting a successful company? So, I think so. I would also go ahead and say that the way that I like to categorize motivation is, in my opinion, motivation is a drug. Motivation is a drug because when you have it, you feel like Superman. Once again, we just talked about it. When you're motivated, you can take on the world. If you're motivated to do your homework, which I don't necessarily know how often that happens, but when you are motivated to do your homework, you breeze through it. When you're motivated because you're doing something you enjoy, you crush it. When you're motivated to create content because you're on YouTube or whatever, you do it in a fraction of the time. But the reason it's a drug is because when you don't have motivation, you crave it. And you start making excuses about how everything would be perfect if only you had a little bit of motivation. Sounds kind of like a drug to me. So, over the past, 7 years now, I look back on what helped with True Local and what got us through everything, and it really was this deep understanding of how to stay motivated for as long as possible. And I concluded that there are 3 main ways that you can increase your exposure to motivation. Because at the end of the day, if let's say you're motivated 30% of the time, right? Because look, no one's motivated 100% of the time. It's never going to happen. I'm not sitting here saying, how can you be jacked up, ready to go 24/7? That's not a reality. But I would go ahead and say that if you're motivated 30% of your life, you're doing pretty good. 3 out of 10 days, you're having motivated days, that's great. But I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but if you were just to increase the time you spent in a motivated state by 10%, just 10%. So if you went from 30% to 40% motivation over the course of a year, it ends up being something crazy like 800 hours of more motivated time over the course of a year. And if we know that we're out here doing 5 times more work because we're productive when we're motivated, what does that do for you as a business owner? Or what does that do for you for someone who wants to kick off their streaming channel or go be a professional content creator or try to get into university or make a pro sports team? If you had 800 hours a year of better work, what are the odds of the success? So for me, there's 3 ways to increase the chances of you being in a motivated state. The first one is understanding the relationship between purpose and motivation. So let me go ahead and dive into that. When you look at having a purpose, it's hard to describe what that is. A lot of people get it mixed up with goals or milestones, but to me, a purpose is so much more. A purpose is something that is so strong. It's the thing that you want to do. It's what you feel you've been put on this earth to do. And it's so strong that it's almost hard to explain to people. It's something that when you try to put it into words, you almost start to stumble. And to me, that's because it's more of a feeling than anything else. And I know for a fact there are a lot of you here that have that thing. There's a lot of people telling you what you should do in this world. There's a lot of people telling you should go do this and you should go do that. And that's probably not a bad thing. It's good to have people in your life that are trying to tell you what to do and where to go because they probably want your best interest in mind. But at the end of the day, that might not be what your purpose is. It might not be what you're on this planet to do. And it could be anything. It could be to start a company. It could be to be a professional athlete. It could be to be a professional gamer. It could be to be a streamer. It could be to be a bricklayer. It could be to cure cancer. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be something big, and it doesn't have to be something cool. It's just this thing that you cannot live without. And the thing is, though, is that this idea of purpose, okay, you can't choose what it is. If you choose your purpose, you're like, oh, okay, I think I should go be a doctor. And then you're kind of just going through the motions, like, okay, I'm going to pick my school that I want to go to, and I'm going to, do these courses and try to go ahead, but I don't really, it's what's smart, and that's definitely not your purpose. This is something you're chasing. There's nothing wrong with that either. But the thing about purpose is that it just comes. It's there, and you can't change it. So let's use an example. The one, in my opinion, lottery in life is the sooner you can figure out what your purpose is or what your current purpose is, the luckier you are. But it's not something necessary. You don't have to know what your purpose is right out the gate because a lot of people feel like they do and they end up forcing their purpose and they end up really just chasing some small goal rather than going after the thing they actually want to be doing. So let's go ahead and look at, let's take LeBron James as an example. This is a man who knew exactly what his purpose was at a very, very, very young age. This man knew that he was put on this planet to do one thing, and that was be the greatest at basketball. So when you double down on your purpose in that way, it was, okay, school's cool, but basketball first. Friends are cool, but basketball first. Work is cool, but basketball first. He sacrificed everything in his life to chase after his purpose. And that's very fortunate because he figured out what his purpose was at a very young age. But for the rest of us, it's not that easy. And it actually drives me crazy because we'll look at and be in a situation where we ask high school kids or university and college students, we'll say, hey, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And it's like, you haven't even lived 1/5 of your life yet. How are you supposed to know what you want to do for the rest of your life? That's ridiculous. It makes no sense. Maybe ask me when I'm 50 and I've gone halfway through my life. Maybe I have an idea of what I want to do for the rest of my life. Some of us are lucky and we've figured out that purpose. But a lot of us are going to have to continue going through life waiting for that inspiration, waiting to get to a point where we have something that we feel so strongly about that we're willing to sacrifice everything else to chase. And what I realized was, for me, because it's so hard to figure out what you want to do, like what is your life's purpose? I just started breaking it down into smaller chunks. Like I have no idea what I want to do with the rest of my life. And currently, right now, I don't actually have a purpose. My purpose was to build and sell my first company before the age of 30. I did that. Now I'm looking for my next purpose. And I'm not kidding myself into thinking that I know what that is yet, but I know for a fact that it'll come. And I know for a fact it'll be that feeling that is so strong that it's hard to explain. It's definitely hard to rationalize. And there's a good chance most people don't understand it. So I always say, I'm like, don't stress if you don't have your purpose. Figuring out your purpose early, that's just a gift. And it's great. But it's a lottery also. It doesn't happen to everybody. So for me, it became really easy to start chasing something when I brought the time frame down. If you don't know what you want to do for your entire life and you don't currently have your purpose, just figure something that you're willing to do for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but go at it 110%. So that's kind of this whole idea of purpose. Purpose is the thing that you feel you were put on this earth to do. I know that a lot of you here know what that is. Maybe you're not even telling it to yourself because you're like, wow, no one's going to understand. But I know for a fact a lot of you are thinking about this thing that you were put on this planet to do. For those of you that don't know that, it's all good. It'll eventually come. But in the meantime, if you want to do something, choose something short term and then just go after it 110%. Forget what anybody else says. Like, we're living in 2023. It's the easiest time in the world to make money. It's the easiest time in the world to start a business. You can do whatever you want. So that's this idea of purpose. And I wanted to give you guys this sort of breakdown because it is important to have something that you care very deeply about. And once again, if you don't know your life's purpose, it is important for you to then backtrack into what could my short-term purpose be? And the reason that that's important is because there is a deep, deep connection between purpose and motivation. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a little bit of a story, and I'll explain how I discovered this relationship between purpose and motivation. And honestly, it goes right back to my story of me being in Cornwall. And I wrote about this a lot in the book, but I went to Holy Trinity. I was actually part of the first generation of people who went through Holy Trinity. The year I was in grade 9 was the year they opened the school. So when I was in high school, and I don't know if Holy Trinity is actually here today, but I am going to go talk to them on Friday. We got some people from Holy Trinity? Okay, perfect. Any of the teachers that were there from back in the day definitely probably have a little bit of PTSD if they had me in their classes in grade 9 and 10. So my high school career was rough. It was at the end, filled with a lot of highs, but in the beginning, we had a lot of lows. So I can confidently say that at Holy Trinity, I was the biggest loser in the high school from grade 9 and 10. And like, I'm not talking about, oh, I'm just feeling bad for myself. Like, actually speaking, if there was some sort of ranking system, I was absolutely at the bottom of that. And I brought it on myself. There was nobody else to blame other than me. And the reason is because, honestly, I was a little prick. Like, if we're being honest, I fought with everybody. I fought with my teachers. I fought with other students. I was being bullied. I would then go bully other kids. It was just this vicious cycle. And to be honest, it was upsetting, but it was just life. I was used to it. I went to L'Héritage, I went to Jean 23, and then I eventually landed at Holy Trinity. And pretty much it was the same trends. And you know what people say, right? If everyone around you is causing problems, maybe you're the problem. So that was pretty much my story going into Holy Trinity. And the thing about it, though, was that even though all this was going on, I always felt like people were counting me out for obvious reasons. Like, if I'm causing all these problems, I was failing out most of my classes, grade 9, grade 10, literally probably like one day away from my final suspension and getting expelled, or just straight up dropping out. I remember I literally had like gone to St. Lawrence and been like, I'm switching schools to come over here, and it was pretty much most of the process was done, and luckily that didn't end up happening, but it was really, really touch and go for a while. And the thing was that it was a vicious cycle because everybody thought I was an idiot. Like, everybody thought I was incapable of doing any sort of work. And it was frustrating because my argument was that it's not that I'm dumb. It's not that I can't do this stuff. It's that I don't care about what you're trying to teach me. Like, I don't care about civics and careers. I don't care about learning the history of English. And I'm not saying this stuff isn't important, but I don't care. It's not doing anything for me. I'm not interested in it. So, of course, because I wouldn't do the work and I didn't act engaged, I would be getting in trouble all the time. And it was because I was a bad student. I didn't do my homework. And any assignments that I did do, I'd pretty much fail them. And it just kind of pegged me as this kid that was always getting in trouble. And then, of course, self-fulfilling prophecy, I was always getting in trouble. Now, with that being said, I was never confused about what I felt like I could do. It's just I never gave anybody a chance to believe in me because I would never show it. But the things that I did like in life, I did really enjoy. Like, I was a huge gamer. Xbox Live, that's pretty much what I would do every single minute of the day that I wasn't forced to be in school. And when I was forced to be in school, I'd usually just skip school and go play games anyway. So these are the things that I really, really loved. And these are things I cared about, and I was really good at it. Like, I could blow through whatever game. I'd go through every single strategy guide. I was ranked number 2 in Canada for Halo 2 for a while. Like, I was actually crushing it. And it got to a point where I really just kind of got fed up of all the stuff I was dealing with at school. I got fed up of people counting me out. I got fed up of going to school being like, okay, which one of the cool kids is going to mess with me today? I got fed up of not having any friends at all. And it got to a point where I remember I went home one day, I think I was waking up in the morning to go to school, and I had literally looked in the mirror and been like, yo, I'm done with this. And I wish I understood more of what happened in that moment, but I don't. I really wish I could go into it in more detail, but I really can't, because for whatever reason, I was just like compelled to stare in the mirror and be like, yo, you're done. You're done being a loser. We're over it. And when I was staring in the mirror, I was this overweight kid with an afro. I always forget, but the best slide I could ever throw up is a picture of my student cards from grade 9 to 10. So it's funny, just the other day I saw one of my old yearbooks, and man, it was a train wreck. But I was this like little, chubby, overweight kid with an afro, women's glasses, like unkept hair, didn't really care about how I looked. But when I looked in the mirror, I saw who I felt like I should be. So I think I got lucky with that, where despite all the things that were going on in my life, I did always feel like, listen, you're all wrong, I'm right. Like, I'm better than you think I am, even though I'm not showing it to you, which is a bit of a dangerous mentality to have. But luckily, when I was looking in the mirror, I decided that I was like, you know what, I want to change all this. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And I probably did that for like 30 minutes. Like, I literally just stood in there and was like, okay, we're going to make a change. And when I came out, it was really the beginning of everything for me. So I got to be clear, like, this wasn't a situation where I walked into the bathroom and then came out and instantly I was like, had that Pete Davidson energy and I was just, Rico Suave kind of thing. That wasn't what happened. I came out and I just kind of made the decision that I was going to start making smarter choices. And it got me thinking, I'm like, okay, if I want friends, I want to be one of the cool kids. And I always got to asterisk this. I actually really hated all the cool kids that were at my school, to be honest. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. It's not that I wanted to be one of the cool kids, but also, let's all be honest with ourselves, there is something nice about people wanting to hang out with you. And that was what I cared about the most. I just wanted to get invited to the parties. I wanted to have people messaging me and be like, hey, what are you up to? Let's hang out. Or, I just wanted to be admired, It was something that I cared about. So I knew the cool kids had that, so I'm like, I gotta go become a cool kid. And then I was like, okay, well, how do you be cool? And the only thing I could settle on was, okay, well, maybe I should start playing football. Couldn't tell you why. It was just the thing at the time that was like, if I do this, I think people will respect me. And pretty much, I bounced around from team to team to team, place to place to place, trying to play football. And eventually I settled on the Canada Knights out in Ottawa. And it was crazy because once I started playing, I had never in my life ever picked up a football. That's the craziest part. So when I decided that I'm like, okay, here's what I need to do to be cool. I need to go play football. I had never even watched a football game. So I pretty much went online. I would look at every YouTube video I could. I got every single book I possibly could on how do you play football. Like, I literally still have Football for Dummies at my house. I started just reading and reading and reading and reading. And obviously, the one thing that came to mind was that I probably need to get fit. Like, this is going to be step one, is I probably need to shed all this weight and actually be able to go play the sport. So that summer, I spent the whole summer in the gym. And just to be clear, I had never picked up weights in my life. So I just started working out, had the gloves and everything. I was down at physical limits. And that whole summer, I would just start working out. And I was reading these books, and it got to a point where when I got back to school in grade 11, I was pretty much unrecognizable. I ditched the glasses, thank God for contacts, and got a haircut, because it's true what they say, a haircut can change your life, and a little different now. But I got back to school, and football was going well. I was playing football in Ottawa, and I was studying the sport. Like, I really became obsessed. And of course, this was a situation where I'm the kid who can't be bothered at all to read anything that a teacher would have me read. Yet now I'm over here literally showing up to class with notes and magazines and this and that about the sport. And huge shout out to Holy Trinity and the teachers, because I went from kind of being public enemy number one to them sort of realizing like, oh wow, like, this kid's kind of turning his life around. Maybe we'll support it. So as time went on, I started falling in love with football. It became everything I could think about. It was the only thing I wanted to do. It was the only thing I would watch. It was the only thing I would talk about. And I'll never forget the day that I realized that if I wanted to keep playing, I had to get into university. And the reason for that is because, as some of you probably know, there's only really competitive football in university. I can't do it in college. So it got to a point where just because I started kind of getting some friends now, and the teachers are being cool with me, and I started getting a little bit fitter, I still was not doing super good in school. I'm very much a C's get degrees kind of guy. So in grade 11, I realized, oh my God, I have to keep playing football. It's the only thing that I love. And if I want to keep playing football, I need to get my grades up. So that started me down the hardest journey of my life. And I would argue like at least comparable to how difficult the true local journey was. But I realized that, okay, I need to start getting my grades up. So I needed to go from, 50s and 55s to arguably 90. And the reason I settled on the University of Waterloo is because no matter how hard I try on anything, I'm not a math guy. I cannot do math. I could build a $20 million company, but don't ask me to do any sort of calculus. So it got to a point where just every single night I would just bang out all the assignments. I would just obsess over getting my grades up, because that was the thing I needed to do to keep playing football. And that's what it started to dawn on me. Football was starting to become more than just this passion. It was starting to become more than just this goal that I wanted to chase after. Football started becoming my purpose. And of course, at this time, I didn't know this. But my purpose was, I need to go play university football. It was the only thing I could think about. And it was a feeling. It was pulling me towards it. I could kind of talk about it, how much it mattered, how much it meant to me and how much it mattered. But at the end of the day, it was something that was just tugging me forward. So the craziest thing is that I hated working out. I hated it. Like, it sucked. It's not what I want to be doing when I'm in school. And I definitely hated my homework. I definitely hated being in class. I hated all these things. But it was crazy because I would do them. And I would get good at them too. I'd go to the gym consistently. I actually started getting good grades, even though I hated it. And what I realized was that because I knew the thing I wanted most in this world was to go play football, all of these other things just became little things that I had to do to chase after this goal, to chase after this purpose. And because I had this purpose, and because all of these things were making me move closer towards that purpose, I was motivated to do them. I was motivated to go to the gym to become more athletic. I was motivated to go to the gym to do my homework so I could get good grades so I could go into university. So all of these things that I hated doing, I was still motivated to do them because it would get me one step closer. And that, looking back on it, is when I started realizing the relationship between purpose and motivation. Being motivated made me more productive. It made me a better person. I was excited to move in the direction that was getting me closer to my purpose. And purpose was fueling that motivation. So what I now know is that having a purpose, it doesn't matter what it is, but something that you're living for, and forget what anybody else says, not only is that an important North Star in your life, but it also gives you the strongest and longest lasting form of motivation that you're ever going to have. Because when you want something more than anything else in this world, you are motivated to do the things necessary to get it done. So that's purpose-driven motivation. And the thing about purpose-driven motivation is that it's long, and it's strong, and it's there when you need it the most. When you're chasing something for a long period of time and you're wondering, how do I stay motivated? How do I keep the excitement and the energy up? When you're 3 years into building your business and the walls are caving in all around you and you wake up one day and you're like, I just really want to hit that quit button, having a purpose and the motivation that you get from that purpose is what'll keep you going forward. So that's purpose-driven motivation. It's the backbone. It's the foundation of what you need to chase after anything for a long period of time. And the easiest thing to correlate that back to is business. Now, the problem with purpose-driven motivation is that you can't just like pluck it out of thin air. It's not something that you can just go and be like, oh, okay, I'm not feeling motivated right now. What can I do to become motivated? Let me just think about my purpose. You don't get to control it. It's there for you. It's your final line of defense and the strongest burning emotion you'll have, but it's not easily accessible. It's not something you can just pluck out of thin air and say, hey, listen, I need to be motivated right now. So, like I was saying before, you'll never have anything that will give you motivation for 100% of the time, okay? All you can do is increase your chances and increase your exposure to motivation. So from there, once you have now understood that purpose can give you a strong form of motivation, the next thing that comes up, which is the second point in how you can stay motivated, is learning how to engineer motivation. So engineering motivation has something to do with this thing that I just call flash motivation. I'm sure there's a better term for it, but this is really easy and it's what I wrote in my book, so I'm sticking with it. But flash motivation, we've all experienced flash motivation, okay? We've all experienced the situation where, let's use an example. Let's say you're watching a movie, because this is relevant to me. So let's say you're watching a movie, and whatever it is, or it's a documentary, and it's nighttime, and you watch this, and now you're ready to take on the world. So whether it's a game or a sport or a documentary or something that just makes you feel all jacked up, ready to take on the world, and you're like, okay, yes, tomorrow I'm going to start. Tomorrow, I'm going to hit the gym. Tomorrow, I'm going to start my business plan. Tomorrow, I'm going to light the world on fire. I'm going to start getting after it. I'm going to change my life. And you're so motivated. You go to bed, and then you wake up, and your alarm goes off, and what do? You hit the snooze button. You're like, screw that. I'm done. Nope. I'm going back to bed. All of your motivation is gone. And that's why I call it flash motivation, because it comes and goes real quick. Now, the thing with flash motivation is that it can be really frustrating. People love to get frustrated about flash motivation. So people love to be in a situation where it's like, oh my God, like, I really wish I could just stay motivated and stay excited. But the thing is, don't get mad about it. Don't get mad because it doesn't stay. We should be happy that you can even get flash motivation from something as simple as a movie or a playlist or going for a walk or a sunrise or sunset or a conversation with a friend. Sure, it's annoying that it goes away quick, but we should be happy that you can even get this type of motivation. So why I think this is important is that when I talk about engineering motivation, once again, if we know that you're going to be more productive when you're motivated, then you should probably do everything you can to expose yourself to as much motivation as possible. And yes, you've got this purpose-driven motivation, which is there, and it's strong, and it's going to catch you when you're falling. But if you want to be better at whatever it is that you're trying to do, you've got to increase that exposure to motivation. So coupling that purpose-driven motivation with the ability to engineer motivation through flash motivation is really important. And to me, there's 3 ways to do this. There's 3 ways to tap into flash motivation, hence engineering motivation. Number 1 is through your content. Number 2 is through the people you spend time with. And number 3 is through your habits. So starting with the first one, content, I guess a little story time here. So whenever we were building True Local, we had gotten to a point where we were finally at the point where we were no longer working in the business every single day. So as a lot of you will eventually find out if you go into business, there is the idea of working in your business, and there's the idea of working on your business. And you might have already heard some people talking about this. And what it is when you're working in your business, you're really pushing that boulder up the hill. You're doing all the things that you need to do to keep your company going on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of founders and a lot of entrepreneurs dream of the day that they get to work on their business rather than in their business. And that's a great place to be. When we were working in the business, it was packing boxes, it was making phone calls, it was dropping boxes off, it was doing pop-up shops. It was never actually making the business better, but because we had no money and we had no employees, we had to do all of this stuff. We had to run the Facebook ads. We had to do everything. So eventually we got to a point where we were working on the business. And that's like every founder's dream, or at least from what I talk to, when I talk to founders, they all talk about, I just want to work on my business. And this usually happens once you get a little bit of funding, or you start making a little bit of money, and you're now able to hire someone to help you. You start to work on your business. Now you're not worried about the day-to-day stuff. You're planning on the week-to-week stuff, or the month-to-month stuff, or the quarter-to-quarter stuff. You're working on the business. You're working on the brand. You're building relationships. You're forecasting things. You're creating graphics so you can run ads. You're working on your business. But believe it or not, there actually is a couple more steps to that. So without going into too much detail, there is this other aspect of being a founder or an entrepreneur when you're working outside of the business. And what I mean by that is that you're going to get to a point where you have people that are working in the company to help keep the business going forward. So whether that's people that are booking calls for you, whether that's people that are packing or ordering inventory, or just keeping the wheels going, you've got that set. Then you've got people that are working on the business for you. So people that are helping to make sure that the people that are in the business, working in it, have all the things they need. People that are spotting trends and trying to figure out what's next. What kind of messaging do we want to do for our next marketing campaign? Who should we hire next? All these different things, you've got people set that are doing that for you. And if you're like me, I'm super chaotic. Like I'm a certain type of founder entrepreneur. And I might have a really good vision, but I tend to meddle a lot, which means that when we've got an amazing team in place, as soon as I walk into the room, things usually start to get a little rocky pretty quickly because now I'm saying, why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? So there is a point when you're building a company when you are actually better off outside the business. And what I mean by that is that that's when you're out shouting about your business from the rooftops. It's when you're shaking hands and kissing babies. It's when you're meeting with investors. You're doing interviews. You're trying to build relationships and partnerships. The business is handling itself. Go out and be the biggest advocate you can be for your company. So while I was doing this, I finally got into this phase, and let's say it was maybe 3 years into the company, and I was doing a lot of interviews. And I'll never forget because we used to get all these people that would ask, what's it like to be an entrepreneur? What's it like? And they would always want to know my habits and the things that I would do and a day in the life and all these types of things. And it would always come down to, or one of the questions people would always ask was, how do you relax? Like, how do you wind down? And I would say that I want to watch TV. To me, TV was a huge way that I would wind down and relax. And I swear to God, like, I might as well said that I like can't read or I am like an alien or something. People would lose their minds when I would say that. And it was because that's not what you do as a founder or an entrepreneur. What are you talking about? Shouldn't you be recording podcasts or taking notes or meditating? And that just didn't work for me. When you get to a certain point, let's say you even have 20 employees, every single day, people are asking for things. Every single day, you have to provide direction. You have to answer questions. And even when you have rock stars in place, I was really fortunate. All the team members at True Local were absolute rock stars. But still, at the end of the day, you've got to do the final approvals. You've got to approve the plans. You've got to help put out the fires. So for me, I just needed to be a vegetable for a bit every single night. And it would pretty much boil down to I needed to watch 2 hours of TV before bed. Otherwise, I would lose my mind. So in university, this is where I kind of realized this, how much I love TV, because I would come home from class, and I'd always just put on Planet Earth. Loved Planet Earth. Nothing makes you feel better about yourself and appreciate life than watching a water buffalo fight off a pride of lions and realize that you've got it pretty good. So I used to love watching Planet Earth. And that was kind of where all of this started. But recently in business, I found a show called Billions. Anyway, long story short, Billions is this show. It's about a hedge fund manager, which is an investor, and he's being always attacked by the attorney general, which is like the most important lawyer in the country or the state. Long story short, it was a show about business. And I would watch it over and over and over again. And of course, it's not like you're actually watching these shows. It was just something to put on. But the thing that I realized is that I would watch Billions like 3 or 4 times a year, just put it on in the background. And what ended up happening was that I found myself gravitating towards it when things would get really bad. Like whenever things were really bad at business, I always found myself really wanting to veg out even more, and Billions was a show I would always put on. And I started thinking, I think to my now wife and be like, you know what? Watching this show where they're about to go to jail every other day and this guy's losing billions of dollars, it kind of put our life into perspective. Like, you know what? Things aren't really that bad. Sure, we got a new competitor. Sure, we're being out-marketed. Sure, we lost a great team member. Sure, this, that, whatever it might be. It sucks. It feels existential. It feels like it's going to cripple our business. But, we're not going broke completely or jail, so it's not that bad. And the thing I started realizing was that it would make me feel less depressed, or it would make me feel a little less down on myself. And then I realized, wow, this show has the power to change my mood. So I'm now doing this thing, not even really paying attention to it, but it is making me feel better about myself. It has the power to either take me from being in a really low place and maybe bringing me neutral, or maybe I'm just putting something on and it's taking me from a neutral place and making me super happy or excited or inspired or motivated. And as soon as I found out that what I was watching had the power to change my mood, it changed everything for me. I started going from a situation where I can just watch random stuff or listen to random music or whatever it might be as entertainment to I can actually put on things that I know motivate me, that I know get me excited. And it's not even like I have to try. I'm watching TV anyway. So I started applying that to everything else. I started applying it to the social media accounts that I followed. I started applying it to the podcasts. I started applying it to pretty much everything. I started applying it to my music. I'm a big hip-hop guy. Nothing gets you jacked up like listening to hip-hop music. So I would cater and curate all of my content to only things that made me feel good or that inspired me. So think about it for a second. When you think about business being long and you think about the only way to be successful in business is to be as productive as possible, be the best version of yourself. And the best way you can do that is to be in a motivated state for as long as possible. Who do you think is going to be more motivated? The person who is always putting on things that at minimum keep them at the same level or make them more inspired or motivated, or the person who's always tossing on that super sad playlist whenever they're feeling bad? Or the person who is following their idols on social media or people that they respect and people that inspire them, or the people that are following news headlines every day about how the world is ending? Who's going to be in a motivated state more often, therefore more productive and more likely to succeed? I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out, but that to me is an amazing way to engineer motivation and flash motivation. Find the things that inspire you, find the things that motivate you, and just surround yourself with it. And it doesn't have to be a business show. Like, I don't know if anybody here has watched Hamilton. You know, it's on Disney+. If you watch Hamilton and you're not motivated, like, you're not really breathing. You know, so whether it's Planet Earth, whether it's Hamilton, whether it's, you know, I don't care. It could be some random reality show. But if it makes you feel good, just surround yourself with it. So curate your content is one of the ways that you can engineer motivation. The next way is the people you spend time with. So look, this one's super, super simple, all right? It might be simple, but it's not easy. There are 3 types of people in the world, okay? People that either give you energy, people that match your energy, or people that take your energy. We've all been around that person who you respect or you admire, and you don't even have to have them say something super amazing. And just hearing them talk inspires you and gives you a little bit of flash motivation. Well, what would happen to your motivation levels or the level in which you're exposed to motivation if you just doubled the amount of time that you saw that person? Maybe it's someone you see once or twice a month. Move it to twice or 4 times a month. And you're now giving yourself a better chance of being exposed to flash motivation, which means now you have a better chance of getting the stuff done that you need to get done. And on the flip side, cut out all of the people that do not motivate you. And that's why I say it's simple, but it's not easy. It's a simple concept. You got toxic people in your life? Cut them out. If people aren't at least matching your energy or giving you energy, just cut them. So everyone's got to go down their own personal journey on that one, but exposing yourself more to people that give you motivation is going to be one of the most surefire ways that you can increase your odds of experiencing flash motivation. And finally, habits. So a lot of people describe habits in a lot of different ways. To me, habits are pretty much the things that you are doing consistently when you don't know what to do next. That's the point of having a habit. When you're chasing something, when you're going after a goal or trying to fulfill your purpose, it's very easy to build good habits because once again, you're just trying to pretty much engineer and architect your life in a way that gives you the best possible chance of achieving this purpose. But making good habits does a couple things. Number one, whenever you're not chasing something, it's the things that keep you on track so that when you do figure out what you're going to be chasing, it's not like you're starting from scratch. If you have a good habit of working out, even if you're not training for anything, it's good to just be in a relatively good cadence of going to the gym consistently. Or maybe it's eating better. Or maybe it's, maybe you're trying to be a chess master. Or maybe you're gaming. Or maybe whatever it is. Just going ahead and making it into a habit is going to make it so that whenever you do start wanting to chase after something very aggressively, you've already got a good baseline of things. And these habits can be anything. It's not necessarily something like on the health side. It could be maybe you meditate. It could be maybe you go for a walk. It could be maybe you shoot, 20, baskets before going to school. It could be anything. So habits are a really good way of kind of acting as a bumper for you to actually get done the things that you want to get done. But the thing on top of that makes it better is that when you're in business, you're being drained so much. Year 1, year 2, year 3, and so on. You are, like I said, just getting punched in the face every single day trying to push this boulder up the hill. So you want those motivation levels, but also the difference is that when you're living a normal life, let's say you're doing a 9 to 5, most people live milestone to milestone. So they're living for these giant, exciting moments that happen, let's say every 3 or 4 months. So let's say you're living for birthdays, vacation, promotion, summer break, Christmas, whatever it might be. And really what's happening is that you're starting off here, and then your tanks and your energy are just slowly being drained until you reach that milestone a couple months away. That milestone comes, your energy levels go back up, and then they kind of just slowly start to drain down, and you kind of keep this decent, small range of energy in your tanks. But as a founder, when you're looking to start business, you need to know in advance that it doesn't work that way, because your energy levels are dropped to 0 almost each and every single day. And you can translate this to anything that you're doing. Anything that you're doing that is massively intensive is going to drain your energy levels. And if you try to go 2 or 3 months without something that is going to jack your energy back up, you're just going to burn out. So, because in business, your milestones are going to be further apart and you're going to get drained much more often, you've got to find a way to extract energy out of the small wins in life. You can't be waiting for the promotion, or you can't be waiting to graduate, or you can't be waiting for summer break. You've got to find a way to stay motivated, to get energy from small things in between. And the thing that I've found the most that can help are your habits. It gets to a point where you need to start appreciating yourself for just doing the small things. If you woke up early in the morning, let's say you have a time that you want to wake up and you did it, it's a habit, great. You've now had 1 win today. Then let's say you're someone who has some sort of morning routine of some sort. Maybe it's the gym, maybe it's meditating, maybe it's practicing sim racing, maybe it's walking your dog, maybe it's studying or reading a book, maybe it's anything, but it's something that you want to commit to doing, and you do it. Great. Now you've got your second win for the day. Then you've got, let's just say, you want to clear out all your emails or clear out all your texts or respond to all your comments by noon. That's something you want to do every single day, and you do it. Well, first of all, if you've now done these 3 things, what are the odds of you carrying on the rest of your day, following through with your habits, versus if you skip one of those things? Let's say you missed the first one, you didn't wake up on time. I don't know about you, but it's kind of like a throwaway for the entire day. Let's say you woke up on time, but then you didn't do that first morning routine. You've already broken the chain, and the odds of you now doing the rest of your habits are significantly lower. So if you reverse engineer that and look at it from the perspective of every single time you fulfill one of those little habits throughout the day, that's a win. And not only is it increasing the odds that you'll do the rest of the stuff you're supposed to do, you should pat yourself on the back for it and actually get a little bit of energy from those wins. Sticking to your habits is something that you should be proud of, and you should get energy from it. So when you're getting energy from these wins, that's what's going to carry you through to your next major milestone. When you're not under pressure and you're not under stress and you're kind of just doing your thing, you don't need to milk energy from small habits, which is also probably some of the reason why it's harder for some people to get habits. You know what they say, if you want something done, give it to someone who's busy. It's because their life is very regimented. But when you are being drained each and every single day, you have got to extract every little bit of energy that you can. And not only does that keep you in a state of doing good things and working towards the things that you're trying to accomplish, it also motivates you, because if you did the first 3 habits in the morning, then you're more likely to do the next 8 that you have throughout the day. And once again, that gives you a form of flash motivation. So from there, understanding that you've got this purpose-driven motivation, this is the stuff that will be there for you in your darkest hour. That's what's going to save you from falling off the cliff. And it's because you have this purpose that you care deeply about. But once again, it's not going to be there for you always. All right? But if you stack that with the next point, which is there is a way to engineer motivation, and you can do that by harvesting flash motivation, then you're now, once again, increasing your chances of being in a motivated state for as long as possible. And the 3 ways to do that are your content, curate your content, spend time with people that motivate you, and just develop good habits. So I'm going to wrap it up here, but the last thing there is to know about motivation, and I do have a long story that goes with this, but we're going to run out of time, so I'm not going to go super deep into it. But you need to understand, and I think this is the most important part, you need to understand that even if you are not motivated, you still got to do work. You've got to be in a situation where we know that you are going to be more productive when you're motivated. We also know that, wow, if you can do some of these things and get in a motivated state 30% of the time, 40% of the time, over 30% of the time, you're pretty much Superman or Superwoman, and you are going to have a huge advantage up against your competitors that are either trying to take your spot on the team or, challenging you for your views or your attention or people's attention or trying to build a company. If you only work when you are motivated, though, you might as well throw that all out the window. You want to increase the chances of being in a motivated state, but you still need to get stuff done even when you're not motivated. And an example of that is a story that I put in the book where we almost lost our company in 2 weeks. We had built the company for about 4 years, and we did an upgrade to our website and pretty much lost all of our customers. And for 2 weeks, we were living at the office. We would shower at the office. It was crazy. And it was one of these times where I had zero motivation whatsoever to go into the office. I had no answers for the team. I had no idea what we had to do next. But if I only was working whenever I was motivated, I actually feel like we would have lost the company that day. So I want to leave you guys with that because a lot of you are choosing what you want to do next and where you want to go. And I really do feel that we live in a world nowadays where if you don't fit in a specific mold or you don't fit in a specific bucket, you kind of get left behind. Like if you don't learn in a certain type of way or if you don't follow a certain path, really you're deemed not to fit in. And things are changing, in my opinion. Like I said, it's 2023. And you guys are at the age where you should double down on whatever you think you want to do. Forget what people are telling you to do. If you haven't gotten it figured out by the time you're like 30, then fine. Maybe you should be like, okay, well, maybe people should tell me what to do. But at this age, man, like I wish I had the streaming platforms you guys had. I wish social media was the way that it is today for some of you. There is a lot of ways that you can connect with people, create products. There's a million different ways to double down on your purpose. And like I said, the thing that was most important to me was just being exposed to the idea that business is even an option because I didn't have that. So I have some stuff here. If you guys want to follow along, you can catch me on Instagram and Twitter. And then also, right now, not sure how many of you are interested in this stuff, but AI has taken over the world. Like the world has changed dramatically in the past, since November. So what is that, like 4 or 5 months? Like everything has changed. And some of the talks that I'm doing right now are really deep on how you can build a company using AI. And what I have here, it's not necessarily relevant to this talk, but if you want, there's a free resource guide on 36 different tools and articles and videos on how you can use AI to start a company or generate content. So if you want, you can grab that. And then also, I'm going to go let Shauna talk about this a little bit, but the way the books are working is the books are out front. If you're with the schools, you can go ahead and get on a list. to get approval to get the book, and then anybody else, we're giving the book out for free. So please go ahead and grab a copy out there. And then also, please reach out, because I always say that it's always cool to go to some of these talks and hear someone who's done it, but to me, the most important thing was always asking questions, was always, okay, great, cool talk, but like, I've got this specific challenge. Like, I've got this thing that I want to talk to you about. And for me, I always wanted to make sure that I let everybody know that I'm here, I'm accessible, you can reach out. If you want to talk about something that's business related, we can chat about it. But also, we're going to be doing a Q&A. So for anybody here that has any questions at all, throw your hand up. I don't think we have that much time. So if you're one of the ones who's like, maybe I'm going to wait for a few people to go and then throw my hand up, you might just miss out completely. So put it up there. If you guys want to talk about any of the things that I've been through, so whether it be Dragon's Den, whether it be True Local, whether it be, driving race cars, whether it be anything like that, we can chat about it. And if some of you are in the process of thinking about getting into business or currently running your own businesses and you have a specific challenge, let me know. I'll literally dive in with you right now on stage and go from there. So